Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro, to Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Soper, joined by Mitch Ribak, broker of Tropical Realty of Suntree, and Louis Cammarosano, general manager of HomeGain. You know, I want to jump into some emails that I've gotten from listeners, Mitch, and maybe you can help answer some of these questions because they're directly related to short sales.
Sure.
First one that I had that came in was from Steve and Diane. They're basically a simple question. How do I begin the short sale process, and how will it affect my credit? I know from the mortgage perspective, which I handle, I can handle the credit aspect. I mean, most of the time, if you're able to complete the short sale, it's going to, offset your credit. You're not going to be able to purchase another home through a government-assisted loan for 2 years.
Right.
What would you say the best way for them to start the short sale process, and when should they start the short sale process? Should they wait, until they're down to the last dollar, or is this something you look at 6 months ahead of time?
Yeah, it's pretty much. If you think you're going to head down that road, then you might as well do it sooner than later, because the process is so long. I mean, you have to list it with a realtor. That's they won't accept them without that, at least from what I've seen so far. And again, the process takes so long because not only you can't really start anything with the bank until you get a contract on the property,
right?
And they won't really accept anything. You would think that the banks would help us out with the pricing, and that's another big issue that comes up with this, which we could talk about in a few minutes if you'd like. But to get started, I mean, the first thing to do is contact a realtor, and you want to talk to someone that understands and does a lot of short sales.
Right.
Because the people that don't know what they're doing are really messing it up for the consumer right now, and that's the majority of the realtors. And
would you say that a lot of those transactions that you're talking about are maybe short sales that should never have been listed on the market to begin with as a short sale?
Well,
meaning that they didn't really hit the criteria. Like there's really not a hardship there. It's strategic, and there's really nothing of substance that would lead you to believe that sale is going to go through.
Exactly, and we talk to our agents all the time about that. If they're going to list a short sale, and we're very picky about the ones we do list, make sure that they're primary residents, make sure that they are having a hardship, make sure it's not just because their value went down, and make sure they don't have a ton of assets. Because if they have a ton of assets, they're not going to be accepted, or they're going to have to be accepted with a note.
Right. Now, I haven't heard in my area as much about these notes that you're referring to. Is that something that they just started, or has that been going on for a while now?
Oh, it's been going on for a while. Again, we're seeing it more with the people who are doing it as investors. But basically, from what we're seeing is if you have assets, they're not letting you just walk away for free.
Right.
They're going to make you sign a note. And I would say maybe if we're lucky, 1 out of 10 of those who are told they have to sign a note will sign it.
Right.
Maybe, and that's a big maybe.
Yeah. Well, here's my next question from Raphael. It was, I'm going through a loan modification, getting nowhere. What's the best plan moving forward?
Yeah, we've had lots of people that don't get any with the loan modifications. They're very difficult to get. They sound good, but they're very difficult. Honestly, the next step is probably to go the short sale route if you need to sell the house.
Right.
If you're financially, now they will do loan modifications as long as you can show that you're financially, troubled, and you can't get them through. But we've seen you've had to go back sometimes 2, 3, 4 times for some of our customers that have gone the loan modification route and gotten them done, because one person will tell you one thing, and the next person you talk to will tell you something different. And we've done the same thing with short sales. We've resubmitted them sometimes if we feel that we have a good case, because you could get a short sale person in a bad mood that day,
right,
and they reject you. And then we filed again and got it through. Of course, it took almost a year to do that. But we've had some short sales go. Our longest one was 18 months before we finally got it resolved. And we didn't get it.
Wow. And well, that homeowner got to live in that house for 18 months without making a payment, I'm assuming?
Yep. And that's the other thing that, again, a lot of the investors are seeing is an opportunity to make a large profit,
right, on
these homes that they never paid a penny on. So they closed on them, didn't pay on them. And I had one guy call me recently, and I just won't list the homes. I don't want to deal with them.
Right.
Like I said, I had a moral issue with it. But one guy called me. He had 31 properties in Palm Bay, which is next to Melbourne, that he paid $260 for each, and they were all worth about $120,000. Wow. I said, well, you up to date on? And he said they're all rented. I go, great. So you're up to date on your mortgage? And he goes, oh no, I haven't paid the mortgage for 6 months. I'm not losing money. I said to him, I said, so if you sold all these properties and made $100,000 profit each, were you going to give the bank more money? He said, of course not. I go, well, then you're not the type of person I work with. You're the reason why we have a problem right now. And I hung up on him.
Yeah.
To me, it's just not the way we need to be going in this country right now.
No, I totally agree, and I think that's you bring up a very good point there because once again, the national media is pumping this information out all the time, like short sales are so prevalent, and you've got short sales and foreclosures going on. So what does everybody think? You know what I mean? They automatically assume that, hey, that might be the alternative for me, and
right.
For some people, it might be.
Yep.
It really might be. And you have to, and I tell everybody, I can't give you a clear-cut answer. And that's why it's important that you talk to a professional that handles those, that have handled a lot of those, so they can identify whether you are a candidate or not.
Sure.
But to make a strategic decision just to, when you're still have good money coming in and you're just saying, hey, I'm not going to take a loss. I mean, it's no different than buying a stock in a stock market for $20. It goes down to $15, and then you have to sell to take a loss. That's just
right.
That's what it is.
Absolutely.
So,
but the problem is most, we've had this dilemma that I've never seen before in my lifetime, and I'm 50 years old, which I know I only sound like I'm 25, but I act like I'm 15. But this belief now that you don't have to pay your debt.
Right.
And I don't know where that's come from. Like, I have my suspicions, but we won't get into that. But people have this belief now that, okay, I made a mistake, but since the banks are evil people, I can go ahead and just let the bank deal with it. You
know what I think it really stems from, to be honest? I think that there's so much animosity just from the general public towards banks because they're the ones that received all the money in the bailouts, which was taxpayer money ultimately.
Yep.
So when they look at things, they're like, well, nobody wanted to help us out, so why should we care?
Right.
And I don't think that that's the right way to go about it. I think that we do need, as individuals, as citizens of this country, to work towards making it a better place and making this real estate market a good, solid. We're not looking for appreciations to jump through the roof. We just want something that's very conservative and constant.
Right. But you have to be responsible for your own debts.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you an example. I was at the airport coming in from flying somewhere. I think I was in Chicago teaching, and I was sitting at the bar with a couple of guys that I just met at the bar, and this, of course, real estate always comes up because I'm always bringing that up. And the guy says, "Yeah, my brother has a $300,000 house that I've been telling him to short sale it because it's down to $150,000." And I said to him, "Well, why is he?" I go, "Is his income changed?" He goes, "No." I go, "Then why is he selling the house?" "Well, it's lost value." I go, "So let me ask you a question. If I lent you $1,000, wouldn't you feel obligated to pay me back?" He goes, "Yeah, but that's only $1,000. I go, "So if I lent you $50,000, you'd feel like it's okay to screw me?" He's like, No, I'd pay you back. I go, "It's the same thing."
Yeah.
I go, "They lent you money in good faith. Whether you like them or not is kind of irrelevant."
Right.
They lent you money in good faith. You're obligated, forget about legally, morally, to pay back your debt.
Yeah. And not to mention that, you think the way the law's set up, and I tell people this all the time, that there is legal ways to go about getting rid of your debt if you have more debts than assets. It's called bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy, absolutely.
And, that those tools are put in place to help people that are in those situations.
Yep.
And, Donald Trump and everybody else, the smart businessmen, when they get in that situation, that's what they do.
Sure.
So,
I've been there, done that.
Right. So you got to take advantage of those tools when you're in that position. But a lot of what you're talking about is people that aren't in these positions, and it's just trying to work the system.
Right. Well, that's what a lot of them are doing. And I'll tell you what we're having a huge amount of is the buy and bail philosophy. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, maybe you can enlighten us real quick.
Yeah, buy and bail is you see a property that's a short sale. We'll just use one across the street to make it easier. It's 50 cents on what you paid, 50% of what you paid for your house. You buy that property, then you let your house go to a short sale.
Gotcha. Without like trying to rent it out and do everything necessary.
Well, again, it's worse than just going to a short sale. You've completely taken away. And honestly, the real bad thing is I see a lot of realtors doing it, which really bothers me, and a lot of realtors that are in our area at least advising their customers to do it.
Wow.
Which is, just, again, blows my mind about the whole morals and ethics of the whole thing.
Right, and it spirals out of control because it's like we said, once one person sees that it's done by another person, it's kind of okay.
Sure.
And then accept it across the board, which, it's definitely not helping us as a country. That's for sure.
Nope. To me, it's the number one problem in our housing problem right now.
Yeah.
If you take all those away, the inventory goes down tremendously, and the market goes back up.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on our last break here, but when we come back, stay on the line real quick so I can get your information out to the listeners, Mitch.
Sure.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio.